So, how do we go about writing a top line? So this can happen in a number of different ways for us. Sometimes it's a case of us starting with an idea that we've had. So we'll play the guitar or keys under that, just a very basic backing track to leave lots of room for the producer to add stuff. And then we'll do the vocals around that. Or what happened in this case, which is also what we do a lot of, is where we get sent an instrumental and then we will add a top line on top of that. So in this case, Max and Lolo sent us an instrumental, and it's pretty similar to what ended up getting released. You'll notice a few differences. It's a little bit slower. There's not quite as many elements, and this is the sort of instrumental that we love to get because it's got plenty of space to add stuff. It's just the same sort of chord sequence going throughout, and there's little production changes, but nothing. It leaves loads of room for the vocals, which is always great. So I'll just play first of all what we got sent. So you can hear there that there's just lots of space, and it's really vibey though. So we loved this as soon as we heard it. So this, what we would usually do at this point is we would listen through the full thing a few times just to get into the sort of vibe of it, to sort of get a rough idea of what they're probably imagining for the track, or what we're imagining, because usually, it's just so instinctive. So quite often you'll hear something and you just immediately know what sort of vibe you want to go for.
Start singing over it
instantly. Yeah, sometimes we will literally, the moment we hear something, just have like little melody ideas. And then what we would do at this point is we would usually just loop a section. Sometimes the full thing to start off with, or we would literally just loop these chords here at the start, maybe, and just sort of riff stuff over it, and then get our phones out and just start voice recording. So it would be like you would loop this section, and then we'll both be sitting with our phones, singing stuff, and sort of like as we're going along being like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, do that, blah blah blah. And the way that we work together is like we'll usually get this sort of melody more or less there before we'll start looking at lyrics. Particularly with this sort of stuff, if we were working on something that was a bit more in the sort of pop world, piano ballad or something like that, that would probably be more lyric driven, whereas for this sort of stuff, it's all about the hooks. It's all about
to be catchy.
Yeah, all about the vocal hooks being catchy, the stuff that's going to stick in people's heads. So if you get a really, really tight melody, then we find it easier to then add lyrics afterwards. And then, of course, there'll be little tweaks rhythmically and melodically as you go along with the lyrics. But to start with, we would usually get a melody that we're really happy with. And we're really just trying to pick out vocal hooks, little things that are catchy. Mm-hmm. So we would have this looped. And then what we would do is, we've got the voice memos. So we'll let you hear the voice memos now. Please excuse the fact they're a little bit dodgy, singing in some of them, because we're just making random noises into our phones. But it sort of gives you an idea of how we approach it anyway. So you hear this is the very first one when we just heard the instrumental. So you can hear that both of us are singing different things.
Like recording into different phones at the same time.
Yeah, and that's what we do loads of, because you sort of just immediately, if you get something, you want to just get it recorded so that you'll forget it. And then it would just be a case of going back, listening through the voice memos, going, oh, that's cool. And you can hear immediately there that we had this sort of rough idea that became this sort of the vocal hook that actually was in the song.
And starting with the hook is very common and quite often the best way to do it, because it's the most important bit. It's what people remember, and then build the rest of the song around that.
So you can hear there that we already had that sort of vocal hook idea going on. And then we would have had a conversation saying, yeah, that worked. Let's do that. Maybe tweak this, blah, blah, blah. So then it became this, probably, I would say it was probably about 5 minutes later. So as well, you can hear the section that has "Tell me I'm not wasting my time." That's what became the main sort of hook for this song. So yeah, we already had the sort of basis of the hook there quite quickly, which quite often happens. Usually, the sort of ideas that come immediately are the ones that
they stick.
Yeah, and then you sort of craft it from there. But the sort of stuff that immediately pops into your head when you hear something is usually the best stuff, because it's just naturally what is standing out when you listen to it. So we would probably quite quickly have been like, oh, that's quite cool. So we sort of have that locked in, and then this is how it developed. Tell me I'm not wasting my time. So, as you can hear there, that is the title of the song. And that became our main hook. So quite often, as I said, we'll be focusing on the melody first, but if you hear a melody that's got a sort of natural, sort of like, it lands on what sounds like a word, so we might have just gone, quite quickly, you go, oh, that sounds like the word time, and then you go, wasting my time. And it might not even be lyrics that necessarily make sense sometimes, but it just gives you sort of like an idea of what you'll sing. And if we're trying melodies out, we might just sing, we'll agree a sentence that we'll sing with it to try harmonies.
I think part of working with other people that makes that so good is if you're singing a melody without thinking about lyrics, someone else can hear a word in what you've sung and think, did you just say that? And you think, no, but it sounds good. So they hear that differently. Yeah,
so at this point we had no concept for the song really lyrically. It was just that "Wasting My Time" sounded like what sort of nonsense words we'd been singing along with it. So you can hear that that's there, and then we expanded it. My time. Tell me I'm not wasting my time. Tell me I'm not wasting my time. So you can hear that we were thinking at that point, because what's really common in dance music that works really well is just doing as for part of the melody rather than filling it with lots of lyrics. So we actually thought at this point that we probably would just make that our chorus. And then what ended up happening later on was we added words.
And then had that as well.
Yeah, and then at the end of the song, it goes into the as.
And again, as you can hear with the writing of that, we're already singing the octaves in this case quite a lot of the time. It will be harmonies, but part of the writing can incorporate the any backing vocals that you're thinking about for later on the production, because it's really important that it will sound good at the end. Mm-hmm. So if you can add things like that and find something, if you want to add octaves, make sure it's in the right key to add that around it, because if you can't, then it might not work later on. And
for us, a big part of the sort of sound that we get is the fact that we both sing. So Mark will sing the lead parts, and then we'll kind of add my voice doing like the high parts up high, like falsetto and all that stuff, to create a kind of full sound. And that, because we're now familiar with our own voices and how we like to do stuff, it means that as we're writing melodies, we'll immediately be thinking about all that stuff. So then, going on from here, this is more voice memos. So I don't know if you could hear that in the background there. Mark says, I don't like that at the end of that. So I was obviously trying something, because we were thinking, as important as having a good hook is how you lead into it. Yeah. So quite often if we've got a hook to start with, then we'll start working backwards. And we'll think, right, how are we leading into that? So one of the things that we always try and think about is contrast. Every section of the song should contrast melodically, rhythmically, and in terms of the pitch. So like if you have got held notes in one section, you want the next section to be short, snappy notes. So the "Tell me I'm not wasting my time" is quite sort of on the beat and punchy. So we immediately were thinking, let's make the thing that leads into that something that's more like rhythmic. So da 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 was immediately what I was singing there, and I'd started that idea, and as you, it's not quite what ended up being the pre-chorus, because
close.
Mark then said, I don't like that, because I'll play that again so you can hear it. And then what ended up happening was that we changed the melody slightly to make it a better link into the chorus. So that's collaboration in action. So you can hear Mark saying, I think it's too low. Yep. So as we're recording that voice memo, we changed that, because Mark's going, no, 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 no. It's not exciting enough.
It's a big part of the pre-chorus building up to the chorus, and the easiest way to do that is make it go higher.
Yeah, a lot of the American writers that we've worked with call it the ramp, which is quite a good way of thinking of it. So the pre-chorus is a ramp that you're like leading up to the chorus.
Yeah.
So as you can see with that, we literally, as we were working out the melody, we're trying to push the melody higher, so it felt like it's and then it's going to be like, we're at the chorus, so it feels bigger. So that was how that developed, and then
another thing with pre-chorus like that, really important as well as the rhythm and the melody of it. The beat that it starts on is so important because you often don't think about it, but like in this, you've got the "Tell me I'm not wasting my time." It's very straight, and the "Tell me" comes on the first beat, but then that pre-chorus, you've got the rest at the start, so it's the da 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 da, just things like that to keep it interesting, so that it doesn't sound too similar to the rest of it.
Yeah, for sure. So you can hear that we've developed that melody further, and we've now got the sort of ramp feel, and then the ba 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 contrast. So even within that section, we've got contrast because we've just gone da 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 da, and then it's bum 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 bum, which is much more held. Tell me I'm not wasting my time. And as you'll hear there, tell me I'm not wasting. What we quite quickly concluded after that was, again, you want space and you want that chorus to feel like a moment. So instead of we changed it after that to just go, I try, just tell me I'm not wasting my time. And that just taking the space, or creating the space by taking words out, I try, just makes that chorus feel like you're sort of taking a literal breath and then going into the chorus. So it feels very like, it's almost like you're sort of, you're saying to the listener, like, hello, this is the chorus, by the way.
The last thing you want is for the chorus to happen and then the listener doesn't realise it's started, because it's instantly not catching up. So just take a break and then boom, here it is.
Yeah, and that's the sort of trick that you can, the writing is as important as the production for that, because one of the big things that people will do in dance music is they'll have a big swoosh, sort of like, and then it goes into the chorus. So you can also try and do that. So by creating space at the end of the pre-chorus, it makes the chorus feel like more of a moment, rather than just relying on production. Feeling your temptation with no hesitation. Every situation leaves me behind. So I remember this one really clearly. Actually, we were a big fan of those sort of like rhythmic things in verses or pre-choruses, and we like sort of like creating difficult challenges for ourselves, basically, where you sort of go, right, let's make all of that rhyme.
Yeah.
So again, sort of, we're not really thinking too strongly about the meaning of the song at this point. It's just like, we know we want these to be words that rhyme, so we were just jotting down words. Again, it sort of sounds like hesitation sounds good. So we were sort of thinking about what rhymes with that, and we're just sort of throwing stuff about to try and make that rhyme, so it's a really satisfying pre-chorus. Give an indication, no interpretation. I try, just tell. So there we go. As we were saying about the I try, we'd created the space, but the I try is a higher melody that we ended up using, because what we did in the end was I try, and again that is just so that you create maximum impact when the chorus comes in. The da is a higher note. So you don't want the note in the pre-chorus necessarily to get as high as that, so that you're leaving the high notes for the chorus. And then that, on that same theme, the wasting my time melody, we altered it very slightly, because we were listening back going, that doesn't sound quite sort of impactful enough. So one of the things you can do for that, as well as taking space out, is making the chorus melody higher. I try, just tell me I'm not wasting my time. I try. So we're thinking, make sure you're doing that. And then the next one. This is another example of the sort of weird noises that we make into our phones. So that might sound like really weird, but actually what we're doing there is, again, we're aware of the sort of vocal tricks that we'll use all the time and things like that. So we were thinking there that maybe we would have the hook in at the start, But rather than it being the full upfront voice, you would play around with it and format shift it and pitch it up and all that, which is what I was trying to emulate.
And trying these things is so important because you don't have to use anything you do. You can just spend time, and if something does sound cool, you can use it. In the end, we didn't, but
yeah, we didn't use that in the end. But that was the first version we sent to the DJ, because quite often we'll try and get the hook in at the start of the song, even if it's just for a split second, just so it gets the listener's ear.
And then that sort of led to just thinking, actually, let's just put the whole thing at the start. So it's got the full sort of vocoder effect.
Yeah,
full vocals, but it could just be something like that. It's always a wee trick to get the hook in early.
And I should say that we wouldn't usually be letting people hear these voice memos. These are just for us usually. So that was just...
Nobody needs to hear them.
Yeah.
So they just need to hear the final song.
That would mainly be so that we would listen back and know, oh yeah, we were thinking of putting the hook in at the start there. And then finally we've got this here. So that's another good example. So we'd actually, by this point, we'd recorded the Tell Me I'm Not Wasting My Time. And then we were, as I said earlier on, at that point it was just, was our chorus. And we were like, not sure we like that. So we tried a different chorus, which was that which was quite cool. And we stuck with that for a little bit, but then we ended up changing it again. And we reverted back to the melody we had for the as, but added lyrics.
If something's catchy enough, then that is such a good way of getting the hook in again without it getting boring. So you have the same melody, but then change it up. Either change the lyrics a second time or just have as, so that it sounds different. It is different, but it's the same melody, so everyone remembers that.
Yeah.
It's really important to make the hook stick in people's head.
Yeah. So that was basically, that's pretty much how we go about writing melodies. And then as we showed there, the lyrics sort of took shape naturally from just words that we were sort of singing as sort of nonsense words. And then at that point, we would, once we've got a melody that we're happy with, we would then go back and say, right, so what words have we got here? And it would just be random stuff. Like you can see here, this was obviously written quickly. I don't know why it hard. Doesn't even make sense. And we're just sort of adding random words, and then we're going, right, what does this mean? What could we be talking about here? And it's a kind of combination of what you're feeling that day, and also like what does the song sound like? So does it sound like a beach? Does it sound like happy, sad, blah blah blah? And in this instance, we like the idea of wasting my time being this sort of like you don't know where you stand with somebody that you're sort of falling for in a relationship context. And the lyrics actually came together quite quickly for this. These are sort of random notes before we started on the final lyrics. Sometimes there'll be way more notes. If it's a more, like, it just depends on the song. Sometimes you get it quite quickly, and this one was quite a good one for speed. We were lucky in that sense; it just came together quite quickly.
Also, with the content and what you're wanting to write about in the lyrics, it can often, if you've got an instrumental and particularly a melody that sounds quite happy, upbeat sounding, if you have that and put happy upbeat lyrics to it, it can sound cheesy, as a lot of people would say it, but good way to change that is make it slightly more deep, meaningful lyrics, something not as bright and happy, and you can get away with having the melody like that. Is quite a common thing that we and a lot of people do. Yeah. So write a breakup song but make it sound a bit happier.
Yeah, just like euphoric or whatever.
Yeah.
Equally, sometimes it just needs to be an out and out happy song, which is also fine. So this is the final lyrics, and we were really keen to get this the sort of rhythmic thing going in the verse and the pre-chorus. So you'll see that there's a lot of repetition of words, follow, like don't, all these kind of things, and then we've got the tight rhyming of temptation, hesitation, situation. And for those sort of rhyming things, we'd quite often use Rhyme Zone, which is a Google, which you can Google, and it's a website that gives you words. So maybe if we had temptation, we'd look it up and it'll have like hesitation, situation, blah blah blah, and that's written there. Or for this one, I actually don't know if we did do that. I think it was literally just that it was sort of like falling out of us because the it's so satisfying to sing. Sometimes it just comes quite easily, and that's always when you know it's something that's good. If it comes quite easily, it probably means that it'll sound good and be enjoyable to listen to.
That's the main thing, because the first time people listen to a song, particularly like a dance, upbeat, catchy song, they're not listening really deep into the lyrics at the start. So you want to make it sound nice, good, pleasing. Yeah. And loads of rhymes, loads of repetition matters so much.
Yeah. So that's basically how we go about it, and then once we've got those lyrics, we would then start recording. And then what will tend to happen is, as we're recording, there'll be the odd word or melody that you'll think, so, maybe the way that the if Mark was singing the lead part, maybe there's a certain word that doesn't feel great to sing, or that we think that could be cooler adding a beat in or taking a beat out. So there'll still be editing going on as you record it. But,
and even once you have recorded it, like with that alternative chorus, you can change things and keep going back and trying it again.
Yeah, and if you're working with other collaborators like we were in this one, they were involved in the conversations as well about the as becoming lyrics and all that kind of thing. Literally just on WhatsApp, sending ideas back and forward, and then you go, cool, we'll try that, and then you record something else. But basically, like, the song, almost always at this point, when we've got this sort of melody on voice memos and the lyrics written out like that, it's about 95% what ends up being the final song, almost always. And that's at this point that we would then start recording it. So we'll now talk about that.